So you guys just got in some new fish. In this video, we're going to talk about a couple different ways to acclimate them and some do's and don'ts. All right, so stay tuned. Cue the intro. Just kidding, I don't have an intro. But let's just jump right into it. First thing you're going to want to do is get a tank set up as a quarantine. Reason behind that is any fish that you bring in could potentially have diseases or parasites, and you don't want that to transfer to your other fish. If that's not possible and you can't do that, you can still follow these tips on acclimation, but it's highly recommended that you get a separate tank to acclimate them to and keep them there for quarantine. Minimum 2 weeks. I normally do 4 weeks before adding them to the tank that you want them to be in. So I already have this 10-gallon all set up. When you guys get fish, always do your research on what type of fish you're getting. The types of fish that I bring in are ones that I know can acclimate well to my water parameters. And that being, harder water and higher pH. I do get fish that like a lower pH, but then this acclimation process will definitely help. So this tank in specific, I had it at a lower pH because I'm bringing in some fish that like it. So what I did was I did 75% tap water, 25% RO water. I did add some catappa leaves and some alder cones to add those tannins to lower that pH. So I tested it after I added that all last night, and the pH was slightly lower than my tap, so that's exactly where I want it. You're going to want that tank to run a little bit with the heater in it, so the temperature is where you want it to be. What I did was I added an existing sponge filter. So what that does is it adds the beneficial bacteria to help the nitrogen cycle going. If you guys don't know about the nitrogen cycle, just look up a YouTube video because that's extremely important when acclimating fish into a separate quarantine tank. So in this tank, I've got about 20 cardinal tetras. I don't know if you guys can make it out there. Well, you'll probably see them better once they're in the tank. So what we're going to do is, my favorite way of acclimation is I'm going to unbag these guys into a container. Let's see if they got one. I'm just going to use one of my clear jugs, and I'm going to put about half of the amount of water that's in here in the container with them. And then after I do that, I'm going to slowly add water from this tank into that container until it equals about 50-50 ratio of bag water and tank water. And what that does is it slowly acclimates them to the parameters of your tank water without completely removing the water that they're currently in. And once you've got the bag open, I'm going to slowly just take out about half amount of this water and put it into a separate container. About half of the water is out, so I'm going to put the rest of this water into this container with the fish. I always want to make sure you got all the fish that were in the bag. You don't want any drying up and not surviving. All right, bag is empty. So for the next about 20 minutes, I'm just going to add small amounts of tank water into this container. Until I've added the same amount of tank water as I had left in the bag. And what that does is it will acclimate them to the water parameters as well as the temperature. Because I know in my tank it's 78 degrees, and then, I don't know, it's definitely less in the bag that they came with. All right, while that's going, the second way of acclimation is the easiest. It's the only way of acclimation that I use if, let's say, I go to a local pet store, or I go to a fish breeder that's around me, or a friend that I buy fish from. Now, these are more rummy nose rasboras from Jason over at Primetime, and he lives probably about 45 minutes away from me. I just picked these up at the swap. I know his water parameters are pretty identical to mine. So all I'm gonna do for this is I'm just gonna put this bag, float it in this tank, and then when I feel the temperature has acclimated for the bag water to be the same as my tank water, I'm just gonna scoop them out and plop them right in. This is by far the easiest way, but also the least acclimating. Now I've removed some water from the bag just because it was overflowing this tank. So all I'm going to do is just put them in here, make sure the bag doesn't open up, and just let them temperature acclimate. So for this tank, I did do a full, I don't know, maybe like a 90% water change on it last night. And there's no heater in here. These are rummy nose rasboras, and their ideal temperatures fall between about 65 to 72. I know this tank's sitting at about 70, so it doesn't have a heater in it. I'm just gonna get them temperature acclimated and then net them out, pop them right in. So there's one more way of acclimating fish, which we're gonna get to, but I do wanna mention that any way of acclimation you do, and anywhere you get your fish from, whether it's your best friend or the fish store, or you're importing from another country, you never wanna add the water from the bag into your tank. Reason being, there could be anything in that bag, whether it's any diseases or parasites that the fish may be carrying, or that was in their tank water that they're coming from, or that there's just ammonia, extra added ammonia in that bag. Depending on however long they've been in the bag, obviously fish produce waste, and there's going to be that waste in that bag. So you don't want to add it to your tank for many reasons that are just completely avoidable, all right? This last method follows the same principle as the first method. This one I like to use for fish that I have either imported from overseas or ones that I know are definitely more sensitive to water parameters changes. So here I've got my rummy nose tetras. Favorite fish, just bought them from Chris over at the swap, and I got what should be 12 but might be 13. They are double bagged, and they do have a little bit of methylene blue inside them just for safety purposes. So let me get them unbagged. First bag's off. Let's get the second bag off. Now you might be asking why I'm doing that for these fish when they are probably just as sensitive, if not maybe a little less, than the cardinal tetras. Is that I know he lives in Michigan, so it's it's pretty far. It's probably like a 5-6 hour drive from me to him. So I know our water parameters are different. And knowing how sensitive the rummy nose tetra are and what type of water parameters they're used to, which isn't mine, we're going to do the slow acclimation to make sure I have the best survival chance for these fish. So just like the first method, I'm just going to take the water and put it into a container. I probably could have removed some, but we'll just do a whole bunch here. All right. So I've got all the rummy nose right there inside the bucket. So they're going to go in one of these 20 gallons. So what I'm going to do here is do the drip acclimation method. And what that is essentially it's like the first method that I had, except this way it's going to be a really slow, consistent drip instead of me continuously adding every few minutes. So what you need is a airline tube and anything to kind of hold it in the water. I tried looking for the clips I have. You can just clip it onto the side of the tank, but I couldn't find it. But I've always used the bottom of the sponge filters because it kind of weighs it down. So you're just going to make sure that stays inside the tank. And then the other end, you're going to do a little suction, and it's just going to slowly drip out. Maybe more than that. Oh, there we go. All right. So this is, it's always got to be lower than where the input is. So this is the steady stream. I'm fine with this. If you want it to be slower, you can tie it off a little bit, and that'll create an actual drip. You guys can see that right there. So this kind of slow drip I would do for, like, you know, really sensitive shrimp species, or, you know, if I got something super sensitive that I imported, you know, from Asia, maybe even a betta fish, I would probably try this method. All right, but I am okay with a little bit more of a flow. So we'll just leave that in there. And there we go. So I'm just going to leave it like this until I've got probably another 50% water level in here. So probably another gallon of water. And then this slowly gets them acclimated to my water parameters. And the warm water goes into the bucket, making them temperature acclimate as well. So that is the drip acclimation method. All right. So let's get back to the cardinals here. Just gonna take a little bit more water. I'm just gonna add it in. And then probably just one more time, and we should be good. Okay, check out the rest of my haul. All right, I did get some calico short fin bristlenose plecos. These, oh, that's a nice big one. These aren't going to require much acclimation. Probably just going to do the temperature acclimation with these guys. So I'll leave those guys in there for now. And then just floating the bag here and letting the temperature acclimate. Also know one thing, that once you guys open the bag, you let oxygen in, any amount of ammonia that's in the bag could spike up. All right. Once the water is warmer, once oxygen is let in, the ammonia almost activates. I mean, there's still ammonia present, but once it reaches a certain temperature, as well as, I don't have this guy on, as well as has access to oxygen, it will rise. So keep that in mind when you're doing that. All right. And then we got a whole bag of green neons, which I do sort of want to acclimate them slowly. But let me figure out where they're going to go. I don't want to, I mean, ideally I wanted to put them in the same tank as the cardinals, but it's going to take me forever. I mean, 20 neons and 20 cardinals. Trying to distinguish them and pull them, separate them one by one is going to be, you know, laborsome. So we're just going to get these guys also in this tank. All right, so we got everything going. These guys going good. This was yesterday's date. See right there, I did do a water change on them. And oh, something else I've been looking for a while are my koi swords. So this place I got them from, Guppy Barn Aquatics. They only had, these were the last two that they had, but I definitely plan on keeping an eye out for them to have more in the future. So these guys I'm not worried about because they're very hardy. So where am I going to put them? Yeah, I guess I have this one open for quarantine, so I'll let them temperature acclimate in there, and we'll let them free in about 15 minutes. All right, so it's been about 15 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that bag. You're going to want to get a container. I like using a bucket just because it's wider, and then you're going to want a net. So I'm going to take this bag, and I'm going to make sure I pour it out into this net just so I catch all the fish. This is a long bag. I'm just going to give it a little fold over a few times. All right, and I like to grab it by the corner, but when you do that, make sure you're not pinching any fish. And you want it to flow out as such. So I'm just going to pour them out. Once again, make sure you got all of them. Oh, see, there's one in there, so I got to make sure I get him out. All right, all of them are in there. No more fish. All in my net. And we're just going to put them right into the tank. All right. And double check the bucket. There are no fish. Double check your bag. No fish. Count them all. All of them are in there. You can see them. Spawning mop in the way. Only reason I let the spawning mop in there is because I know it has beneficial bacteria on them. So it's just there. Also to kind of provide cover. All right. So let's move back to these guys. So the same thing. We're going to use this bucket as a catch-all. Take these. Let's see. Trying to count them all. I don't think I can. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That should be about 20. All right. Get them all out. They're all in here. And let's release them into the tank. Double check all of my containers. All right, looks good. I'm gonna add something inside that tank so they have more cover. We'll leave it for now and let them acclimate. One thing that's important when you guys are acclimating your fish is, depending on how sensitive they are, I normally like to make sure they have low to minimal amount of light, just so they don't get stressed out, and not to feed them until the next day. So right now it's still early and I haven't done my daily feedings yet, but all these fish that I got in today, I will not. I'll just skip their feeding today and feed them tomorrow. Reason behind that is they are stressed out, so they might not eat. I mean, chances are they won't eat. You don't want all that food to just be uneaten to create extra ammonia. All right, my koi, swordtails, just pop those guys in. Okay. Let's take this guy out. Bag of plecos. Pour the whole bag into the net. Make sure I'm not missing any. And these guys can go into the tank. All right. So as you guys noticed, I'm not putting any of their bag water into my aquariums. All right, so these guys I'm going to try to net out. Yep. Put it in. 2 scoops, not bad. All right. Good. And then I'm gonna dump this water out. I do want to do a slower acclimation on these neons. I'm going to give those maybe about 5-10 minutes, and they should be good to add. Let's go take a look at our cardinals. I'm excited to have these in the fish room. Hopefully they acclimate well. Hard water stains. But I mean, of course they're stressed out. They were just bagged up, taken to the swap, and then I picked them up, drove them home, which is almost an hour away, and acclimated them and put them in the new tank. So that's why I want to try to leave the lights out. Try to provide cover if you can. Probably going to try to add a piece of driftwood or something, maybe something, an old ornament I have, just so they can have that security so they won't be as stressed. And then, you know, probably tomorrow they should color up more, and then that's when I'll start feeding them. So I'm really excited about those. Hopefully they do well. So this is a softer pH, so I'm just going to leave it as is for the first time around. When I do my water changes like normal, I'm just going to use straight tap. So it's going to slowly raise that pH, and it's going to be an extremely long, like over a month period, acclimation from this lower pH water, since it's partial RO, to my regular tap. And, you know, that's just how I'm going to keep them in my regular tap. So I want to acclimate that, and that's going to be an extremely slow process. The slower you go, the easier it is on the fish. All right. So I guess that's it. Hopefully you guys learned something from this acclimation process. So always keep your fish safe and healthy. Benefits you, so you don't have to waste your money, or, you know, benefits the fish as well, to be able to have a happier life, less stressful. So yeah, hopefully you guys did learn something today. See you guys in the next one.